Everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So after a decimated week of racing due to the weather, there's only 4 in the handicap analysis video this week. So we will spend a little bit more time on them, talking about them. Starting off with Hillcrest, who has dropped now down to a mark of 135 from a mark of 140. Now, I feel last time out, when was it? On the 11th of January, what was that? Saturday? Let's just have a look. The 11th of January was indeed on Saturday. I feel they were running in this race, Grade 2, Touted Novices Chase, with the idea of getting his handicap mark down. Having been beaten in a novice handicap chase at Cheltenham, beaten in a graduation chase, comfortably beaten as well at Haydock, to then end up in a Grade 2 doesn't make any sense. That's not where they should have been going. And yeah, it just feels to me like they were running him here thinking we're going to get quite comfortably beaten, we're going to drop in a handicap, and then we can look at what we can do with him. And I therefore feel it worked. He got dropped £5, down to a mark of 135. Obviously, he was a good hurdler, and I did think about even suggesting that maybe they try dropping back to hurdles, going for something like the Pertemps Qualifier at Haydock and then on to the Pertemps final. Problem with that is he's still rated 144 over hurdles. His hurdles mark hasn't been changed, and that just means that he looks very well handicapped over fences, especially for a horse that when he was running over hurdles, it always looked like whatever he does over hurdles, he's going to be better when he goes over fences, because he looked a massive great horse. Some of his hurdles form was good as well. He even beat I Am Maximus in a Ballymore novices listed hurdle race. Obviously, I Am Maximus has since gone on to win a Grand National. So yeah, stick to fences. Drop him back into handicap company. So this would only be his second handicap run, and maybe even running at Cheltenham, it was too far. Maybe the 3-mile trip is too far for him. He might have got away with it at Haydock in the Albert Bartlett novices hurdle because he beat nothing. And when I say that, Crystal Glory, who was second, is a 133 rated horse. Last seen pulling up at Ayr. Didn't really do a lot. Finished 4th of 14 in a Grade 1. Okay, that looked decent. Then went and won at Hexham in a novices chase, but has since been comfortably beaten. Doesn't look that much. The third horse, Scipion, who was only 6th that day, is now rated 110. No, is now rated 105 over fences, 115 over hurdles. Scipion went off 15-2 that day. Green Book, I don't know whether he's come back out again. He retired relatively quickly after that, I believe. Last seen finishing 4th in a Pertemps final. Okay, that was a good effort. And I think we were on Green Book that day in that Albert Bartlett Grade 2. So maybe it just wasn't the best of races and he was able to win over 3 mile because it wasn't a great race. So drop him back in trip to this 2.5 mile trip. Drop him into a handicap and go back to Haydock. He's got 2 good runs at Haydock. He's won there and he finished 4th in a graduation chase behind Trelawn, Iroko and Deafening Silence. All reasonable horses. And there's this race here, the Unibet Middle Distance Veterans Handicap Steeplechase. So he gets in because it's a 0 to 135 and he is rated 135 now. He is a veteran because he's over 10, so he's able to run in the veterans. And it's over 2 miles 3, 203 yards, so just shy of 2.5 miles, which is probably his optimum. And it's at Haydock, where at least he's won before and ran a good race when 4th behind Trelawn, Iroko and Deafening Silence, as I've mentioned. I mean, that looks the perfect race for me for Hillcrest. And then if he wins that, they can then think about going to Cheltenham. Maybe for the plate or maybe waiting for the April race. But otherwise, I don't want to see them running him in graded races and just over-facing him now. He's clearly not it's not working just yet over fences. Let's try and win a race. And if it has to be a veterans race, it has to be a veterans race. That's on the 15th of February, so 1 month and 1 day. I think that would be perfect for him. Second horse I want to talk about is West to the Bridge, who has dropped £3 down to 127 after finishing 5th of 9 at Fosslas. Now, I am convinced this horse does not want 3 miles, particularly on the heavy going. His form over 3 mile on the heavy going doesn't look that great, and he never seems to quite get home either, in my opinion. Best run this season was when finishing strongly over 2 miles 3 at Bangor 3 runs ago on good to soft ground. Now, he was chasing home Might Eye and Aston Martini that day in front of Jungle Jack. So Jungle Jack has come out and won since. 6th has come out and won since, Della Casalunga. 8th has come out and won, Zipco. The form has worked out pretty well. I'm pretty confident Aston Martini could come out and win a handicap. I think Might Eye could run well again over the 2.5 mile trip. West of the Bridge probably ran in a very competitive race at Bangor, and it was I even missed En Public came out and won at Doncaster. So that race has thrown up a win for 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th of the 9 that finished. First has been seen since. Sorry, he went up to 3 mile. He doesn't want 3 mile. The runner-up hasn't come out. Aston Martini. No, get that wrong as well. Aston Martini did come out, ran over 2 mile, the wrong trip in the Jerry Fielden. Once 2.5. So the front two both went over the wrong trip. Third has been over the wrong trip. Those that have gone over the correct trip, 4th, 5th, 6th and 8th, have come out and won. So West of the Bridge needs to run over the correct trip. And that trip for me is 2.5 miles, not 3 miles. Dropped now down to a mark of 127. That is the lowest mark he's been since 2022, January 2022, when he won a handicap at Chepstow over 2 mile 3, before going on to win at Carlisle and Sandown. 4 consecutive wins back in 2022. There's a couple of races that I spotted from last year. This one here, this 2 mile 3 race at Carlisle. He's been to Carlisle, just looking on my other screen, 3 times. He was 4th over 2 mile, not the right trip. He won over 2.5. He won over 2 mile 3. This race here would be perfect. He's a 0 to 130. He's rated 127. Problem is I couldn't find this race on the upcoming entries. It might be that it's early March and I can't see the races for early March just yet. If he didn't go there, maybe this could be a better race for him. 2.5 mile at Newbury. It's for seniors, so it's for horses rated 8+. So being a 12-year-old, he would obviously qualify, but it does just mean he might take on some of the more exposed types rather than bumping into something that's very well handicapped, still young, 5, 6, 7-year-old, that could still be progressing. This trip would be ideal, the 2.5 mile trip. For me, it's really all about whether this race is available. If this race at Carlisle is, that's where he's got to be running for me. We move on to a horse called One Big Bang, who dropped £1 to 126 after finishing 6th of 9. Comfortably beaten, to be honest, in a handicap hurdle at Fosslas with the cheek pieces on. Now, to be honest, I might be suggesting that the cheek pieces come off because that was his worst performance in a little while. He didn't take to the tongue tie when trained by Paul Tobin. He pulled up on his final start for Paul Tobin. He then moved to James Owen and he left everything off. He won, he finished second, then he finished 4th. But he was only beaten 4 lengths by Strachan that day. Strachan, Idefix, Desierg and What a Johnny. I don't think that was a bad race, to be honest. He went off the 100 to 30 favourite. That was New Year's Day. He's actually run very quickly, come back out very quickly, just 10 days later at Fosslas. And maybe that just happened a bit quick. It came round a bit quick, maybe needed a bit more time off. But he dropped £1 to 126. Now, I want to take his form earlier on in the season, literally. I think his second behind Shoot First at Haydock was a very good effort. He went off the 11 to 4 favourite that day for a feature Betfair Stayers handicap hurdle. Only got beat by Shoot First, who is a horse that I am looking out for when he goes back handicapping. I think the Pertemps final will be perfect for him as well. They were in front of Phantom of the Points, who should have won last time at Chepstow, would have won if he'd not thrown the race away after the last. I think it was a good race that they contested, and One Big Bang. That's kind of I feel that's his true form, that run there. So with that in mind, he finished second at Haydock in a feature race. Where do you go with him? Let's go for the Pertemps Qualifier. There's a Pertemps Qualifier on the 15th of February. I think he will put his best foot forward. You can certainly put a claiming jockey on. I would kind of be trying to win the race. I would be trying to win the race, although it's a qualifier and the top 4 will qualify for the race. If you win it, you're guaranteed a place in the final. Now that could be key because he's quite low in the handicap. He's only rated 126. If he finished second or third or fourth, he might not get a high enough rating to get him in the final at the Cheltenham Festival. However, if he wins, he'll guarantee himself a place and probably get enough to get in the weights proper anyway. So, might end up right at the bottom, sort of 10 stone 1, 10 stone 2 for a Pertemps final and look quite progressive. I think he is still on an upward curve. It just didn't work last time. If you ignore last time out, his previous bits of form had been pretty good. So go for the Pertemps Qualifier. Try and win that. I think they would, or they'd take all of the beating for sure at Haydock on the 15th of February and then turn up in the Pertemps final. And I think that's the perfect plan, in my opinion, for One Big Bang. And finally, the last horse I want to talk about, I've mentioned him a few times in other videos as well. It is American Mike, who doesn't have the pace for 2 mile. Watch his race at Fairyhouse when he was third behind the Folkes Tiara and, was it the King of PRS that day? Yep, the Folkes Tiara and the King of PRS. Didn't have the pace, out the back, made a mistake early, made a couple of silly mistakes, started to make headway when making a mistake 2 out, got going again and went third on the run-in. Didn't quite have the pace to run them down. A similar sort of race last time as well. Out the back, made some ground into it, didn't quite have the speed to keep up with the King of PRS and Paf de Roux. Midnight It Is, I know, did come past him, but I still think American Mike looks like the type that needs a lot further. I feel that he needs 2.5 at minimum, really. You can see that he's actually won before, over 3 mile, when he beat Nick Rocket and Manila Kakuna. That's pretty good form, as in the ratings of those horses. What's Nick Rocket now? Nick Rocket is rated 152 over fences. Last seen finishing 4th over 3 mile in a handicap. Manila Kakuna is currently rated 156 over fences. Obviously won the Bet365 Gold Cup last year and also finished 3rd in an Irish National. Really good form. So American Mike beat both of those off level weights. There's no reason why he shouldn't be winning nice races. After that, they kind of aimed him quite high. They went for the Brown Advisory at Cheltenham. He got comfortably beaten. He ran in the Champion Novice Chase at Punchestown. He got comfortably beaten. Over 3 mile, and it may be that he got away with the 3 mile at Navan. Maybe both Nick Rocket and Mila Kakuna needed further, and he was able to just last it out. And it's also possible that on his return this year in the Troy Town Chase, when he finished 6th, he needed the run. But he went off 5-2 favourite that day, off a mark of 145. Bearing in mind that he might get 3 mile, but definitely doesn't have the speed for 2 mile. 2.5 mile is where you want to be aiming him. And if we look at this 2.5 mile race here, this is probably the best bit of form he currently has. He was winning, but look who he was beating. He was beating Factor File. And he beat him off level weights, over 2.5 mile. Surely that's where we've got to see American Mike next. Over 2.5 mile. In a handicap, because his handicap mark is still workable. He's gone off 5-2, 7-2 and 5-1 for feature handicaps so far. This race looked perfect. 2 mile 5 at Leopardstown. I see no reason why he doesn't run a really big race at Leopardstown in this feature handicap. It's worth 76 grand. Just going to have a look. The Choi Town was worth not much. Well, not as much. Let's have a look at these three. They've got him more experience over fences in handicaps. Yes, they've not managed to drop his mark. 51 grand for that. They were probably trying there. 23 and 48. Next one, 76. This is the biggest pot of this season. That's the one you want to win, isn't it? And yeah, he's been consistent without winning this season. I would be disappointed if he didn't take all of the beating if he turned up at Leopardstown for the Dublin Racing Festival. He's clearly a very good horse. I think he's a classy horse. I think he's probably graded company just over the right trip. So yeah, American Mike staying the same on 146. Definitely caught my eye. Put Carl Miller on board. Go for this race at the Dublin Racing Festival. I think he'll take all of the beating. So very quick recap. Hillcrest can drop in class, drop in class, go back to Haydock where he's run well before, and go into a veterans race. I think he would take all of the beating on the 15th of February. West of the Bridge, it's all about dropping in trip for him. He doesn't want 3 mile, he wants 2.5. There are a few races that could be key for him, could be interesting for him, including a seniors race at Newbury, if this race at Carlisle is not on the card this year. One Big Bang possibly came a bit soon, his last time out effort. The 3 efforts before that were good, including finishing second in the Betfair Stayers Handicap Hurdle at Haydock. That's where I think we've got to go back with him. For the Pertemps Qualifier, you win that, you get in the final, you turn up to the final in great form. And finally, American Mike, who just needs 2.5 mile, in my opinion. As soon as he gets 2.5 mile or a little bit further, I think he will run a really big race and take all of the beating in a feature handicap. Hopefully that is at the Dublin Racing Festival over 2 mile 5.